Big changes are coming to the world of TV weather. New competition, new technology, and the gravity of climate change finding its way into weather reporting every day. I'm Michael Depp, editor of TVNewsCheck, and this is Talking TV, the podcast that brings you smart conversations about the business of broadcasting. This week, that conversation will be with Jim Cantore, long the most recognizable face at the Weather Channel, which is nearing its 40th anniversary this spring. We'll talk with Jim about how his job and the tools he uses to do it are evolving. And we'll look at the special relationship viewers have with meteorologists, perhaps especially him. We'll be right back with Talking TV. Welcome, Jim Cantore.
Hey, thanks for having me. This is great.
Well, thanks for being here. Jim, you've spent your entire career as a meteorologist with the Weather Channel. It was your first job out of college in 1986. What has kept you there?
I think the fact that it's always evolved, it was man in front of a map to, hey, Jim, in 1992, do you want to go out and cover the second landfall of Andrew in Louisiana, to go out and actually be in the stuff that you're talking about, which was, as a young kid, really still at that point, that was like a great honor to be able to be asked to go in the field. So I jumped all over that. Then along the way, I got to host some programs, got to work with NBC when we were a part of that family and do the Olympics and do sporting events with them. So there's just always been something different that has come along. And of course, most recently, some of our immersive mixed reality, which is where we kind of bring the audience into a strong tornado as it's developing, into a flood as you're getting storm surge and a hurricane. So these are really cool things that I've been able to do in my career, and it's been only at one place, at the Weather Channel.
So the channel has been through several owners in your tenure, most recently Byron Allen. How has it changed since he took over?
I mean, Byron's great, man. He challenges you. He wants you to think. He wants you to work hard, and you really want to work hard for this man because he's humping it every day, trying to get in and out of different things. So I kind of his energy is infectious. Mm-hmm. You can't help but just want to crush it for Byron. And, since he's gotten there, we've certainly had our share of different avenues come along. The phone apps have gotten more prevalent. We've seen Fox Weather come along. Rumor has it that Scripps is going to come along. So, there's certainly been challenges to us from different angles. AccuWeather, Weather Nation, CNN is obviously still doing weather. So there's a lot of ways that people can tune in and get that weather information. And yet our brand, the Weather Channel, has stood strong for so many years now. And it's been great to be a part of it.
Yeah, as you mentioned, there's a widening view that TV weather is ripe for disruption. And no one has seized on that more than Fox with the launch of Fox Weather late last year. So that new streaming channel has poached a number of people from the Weather Channel and elsewhere. What are you doing to keep your own competitive edge?
I mean, the fact that we still have our own channel, and we know, when the game's on the line, if you will, we're in our Super Bowl where we got a blizzard, we've got a flood, a tornado outbreak, we're always on it. So people come to us, they've learned to trust us over the years, and we know they're going to get excellent information from the meteorologists that we have, both behind the camera and on in front of the camera. So, those kind of things keep people coming back. But you always have to be, on your toes. You always have to think about how you can do it better, because, these guys are gunning for us. There's no question. There's a lot of very good broadcasters out there. And like you said, they stole a few of our really good people. So, they knew what we were doing. They knew what our mission was, and they've kind of brought that energy to Fox. But so now that we have to up our game. If competition doesn't make you better, then you got to get out, right? Yeah. But we've always taken that challenge, and it's something certainly that's become a lot more prevalent in the last few years, and we're going to keep on doing our thing, man.
You're also always competing with people's phones where they can get a wealth of hyperlocal weather data constantly. So how do you maintain a value proposition for viewers to stick with you given that?
I mean, it's interesting because I've had people say to me, Jim, I've got this thing. I don't really need to watch TV anymore because I'm always on the move. And to an extent, I get it. But there's also people that say, that you guys didn't forecast that. That wasn't on your app. And I said, yeah. See, if you'd watched the television and you'd heard it from a person, you would have heard that there was a chance that we could actually had snow in Nashville versus just looking at a sunny icon with a cloud on it. So that's where you kind of miss out if you don't, tune into the Weather Channel every once in a while, because those are the kind of things that we can talk about. So, for us, the challenge is, hey, listen, some of these nuances in weather, you got to exploit them. You got to talk about them. Because think of the things that people aren't going to get on their app. What can you give them value added that's not on that app? And frankly, the answer is plenty. There's a lot that isn't said with an icon. There's a lot of read between the lines of a sun and a cloud. That's it.
So there's no substitution for narrative, basically.
None.
And speaking of that, the New York Times recently had a piece on the collective event of weather reporting, the kind of psychological impact that it has on us. You're known for your coverage of extreme weather, most famously, but what do you think about your role in just the everyday, putting the story around the collective experience of weather that binds us all? Is that something you think about as important to what you do?
I mean, it is. I like to engage the viewer. I like to almost refer to events that either happened over the season, let's say it's winter or spring or summer or fall, over an outbreak that may have happened. I mean, I know I've been continually talking all this winter about Kentucky, which made an incredible impression on me to go to Mayfield 2 weeks before Christmas and see people's lives completely torn apart. I mean, that really rips at you as a person. And then they went into rain and heavy snow, and then back to tornadoes in February. And now there's even snow in the forecast, coming up here in March. So they've just had a heck of a winter. And so you're like, instead of just being an icon, instead of just being a person reading the weather, but I mean, you have feelings, and you have to understand that these people have gone through it as well, and they're just trying to get their lives back in order. And it's not just Kentucky. I mean, there's several. The Pacific Northwest had a massive flood in I guess late fall, early winter, depending on which calendar you use. The meteorologist for these people, because that's what going out in the field has taught me. You're going out there and you're sharing that hardship with them, and oftentimes it's very hard to leave because you feel like, gosh, you know what? I really haven't told this complete story yet. There's more to tell. We need more humanitarian effort in here. So you just never forget that. It makes a lasting impression on you as a person. So to come back after that and then be able to broadcast again with the next event, I think it brings just like hey, I didn't go through it and lose everything with you, but I went through it and felt what you felt and saw you lose everything. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, it sounds like being a great meteorologist requires you to be an empath.
Yeah, you have to be. And it's hard. I mean, the hardest thing, and this all started in Katrina back in 2005. It was really, when they told me I had to come home, I said, no, we're not done telling this story, because all the attention was on New Orleans because of the man-made levee failures there. And certainly that was a disaster that needed attention. But these people in Mississippi were really at the heart of the hurricane. They dealt with the hurricane eye wall and the 30-foot storm surge. So, and the response was so delayed and so behind and really awful. And FEMA knows it, and they've fixed things since then. But that was really hard for me to leave. And when I think back to disasters, if I have PTSD when something big comes along, it's because of that one, for sure.
Yeah, I lived through it myself, so I know. I was there. Climate change has essentially become the most important story in weather. How does it weave into your daily reporting now, and how are you adapting to the extremities that it's introducing into the weather narrative?
It's complicated. It certainly makes my job a lot harder because, as a meteorologist who's seen stuff for 35 plus years now, and you're just like, holy cow. Okay, so we have the highest temperature ever recorded in Southwest Canada in the summer, followed by the biggest flood they've ever had in Southwest Canada in the fall. And you're like, there's a climate signal there. So how you present that is very complicated. And you don't want to just blame every nuance of weather that occurs on climate change, because weather is still going to happen. I mean, weather happens every day. I always used to say, okay, weather is 10 seconds to 10 days. Climate is 10 days to 100,000 years. So, it's a period versus, an immediate forecast. And sometimes getting the forecast in the weather is difficult. So trying to forecast out over, decades and certainly a century or two can be much more difficult because there's a lot more parameters involved. But some of the things that we've seen now, either it be on satellite or the glaciers melting, these are things you can see, the temperatures rising, and just take a 30-year period. I mean, there's no question that this little tick up that we've done with the Earth's temperature has had a lot of dramatic changes on it. And I think the atmosphere is reacting. It's like I don't feel as comfortable as I did. So it's like when you have a cold or the flu, you just don't feel as comfortable. So you're trying to get better. You're trying to make it better. And unfortunately, that usually means more severe weather, more floods, sometimes hurricanes that stall. I mean, these are trends that we're watching where we can't just say, hey, that's climate change, but it's an interesting trend that we've seen hurricanes slow down. It's an interesting trend that we've seen them now strengthening upon landfall versus slowing down a little bit and weakening like they've been doing for years past. So these are interesting trends, and you wonder what the climate link is. Well, the ocean's warmer. It's a lot warmer than it used to be. So, there's a lot of energy, and that's where hurricanes get their energy from into the oceans. So that's certainly part of the equation. Is it the whole equation? Probably not, but it's certainly part of it.
Do you get much pushback from viewers on this subject as you raise it?
There isn't a time that I don't put out a tweet, whether I talk about a record high or a record low, especially the record lows where it's cold, and people come back and they say, yeah, so much for climate change. So you're like, well, I'm not doing a good job explaining to them that it's the extremes. And temperatures, both cold and hot, are two of the top key indices that we know occur in a changing climate. We have more extremes in the temperature variability. The link with hurricanes, the link with tornadoes. I think the link with floods has gotten a lot stronger, but they're not as clear cut. Mm-hmm. Because we've built up cities, we've made them bigger. Our infrastructure is old. It can't hold what it used to hold. So there's a lot more asphalt. So there's a lot more runoff, right? Than there are woods to take in the water. So there's a lot of other variables that go along with just, that's climate change. So you can't really do that. But it does make it difficult. I do get pushback to answer your question. But you just try and make those inroads where you can. These are things that we've seen. Great example, just to here in early March, Brisbane, Australia, had almost 80% of their yearly rainfall in 3 days. I mean, if that is not just an alarming signal of some sort, I don't know what is. We know the water's warmer. We know that the air itself can hold more water vapor, so that the physics that create the weather, whether it be thunderstorms or just continuous rain, are the same, but yet they got more to work with. Mm-hmm. And you just kind of put those kind of little things together and you say, yeah, that there's definitely a clue there. There's definitely a signal. It's not the whole point. It's not the whole thing that's going on, because they all, the weather has to come together just right for something like that to happen. But there's a signal in that. There's a signal in that.
Meteorologists have an ever more sophisticated arsenal of tools to work with now. You mentioned immersive mixed reality at the top. Which among these tools are you the most excited about using right now?
I think the GOES program with the satellites is probably one of the greatest things to come along, because it's going to fill a big data void over the oceans that we have in adding data to the models. They just launched GOES R the other day, or Go, I can't remember which letter it is, but it's going to be GOES 18. I know the numbers. It's going to be GOES 18 once it gets up there, and they're going to put it out west for what was GOES 17 that had some failures. And so we weren't getting the best information from that satellite. We can still get some, but we weren't getting the data to go into the models. Now that'll happen. And you're going to be able to look at fires before they even start. Things like that. They measured GOES 16, which is the Eastern satellite. It measured the longest lightning streak on record, the longest lightning, which I thought was just amazing that it was able to do that. So just the resolution and the fact that you've got better computers and processors and allowing us to be able to see all this stuff in real time, I don't think it gets much better than that.
So there's a joke that's long been circulating that when you arrive someplace where extreme weather is heading, locals know that meteorological doom isn't far behind. So what has it been like for you being a literal harbinger of doom?
It's fine. I've accepted it with grace and honor, frankly, because if that is helping people be prepared and get out of harm's way, then so be it. Now, look, I'm not always going to be in the perfect position for the exact worst weather. Plus, sometimes the worst weather is pretty spread out and I can't be everywhere, right? But if there's a signal there to help people prepare for it, and we've certainly tried to play that and play into that with the Weather Channel, then so be it. That's half my job done for me. Just showing up.
Well, Weather Channel hitting its 40th anniversary this spring.
Yeah.
That's something. Thank you so much, Jim Cantore, for sharing your thoughts, being here today. It's been a real pleasure.
Thanks, Mike. I really appreciate you having me, man. Thank you.
And thanks to everyone for watching and listening. See you next time. A new episode of Talking TV is available most Fridays on TVNewsCheck.com. You can also listen and subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and Spotify.